exciting meeting of the Charlton Water and Sewer Commission. Today is April 8th, 2019, and we'll start off with Commissioner's Public Forum. Anybody?
I'm just here to listen about Buffinville.
Okay. Oh, you gonna wait till it's on
So
the
Peter-
agenda?
yeah, Peter Newton.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was on the agenda, so I guess we'll wait till then. If not, then we'll start off as usual, reading the minutes and warrants and abatements. Mr.
Sure.
Jennings.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes of March 25th, 2019 as printed.
I have to abstain.
Okay.
You can second for
Yeah,
discussion.
can
Oh,
you-
I'll
You
second.
can second them, I guess, but I guess there's no discussion then. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstain.
Next, we have I'll make a motion, we accept the warrants for review and signature as printed. Commissioner salary, $400. Viola, $120. Osterman, $1,054.82. Jeff Helgerson Excavating, $150. LaForte Electric, $349. Viola, $38,486.07. WB Mason, $38.74, for a grand total of $40,598.63.
Okay,
Second.
got a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion on any of those payments? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You got more for us?
Oh, that'll do it.
That was it. Okay, then we can move right along. And let's see, our first appointment is not here. So you wanna go,
Sure, we can just start heading down and go to new business.
okay?
So we have a request from Roy Gunther, who owns property up off of Boucher Road, that's currently under chapter 61A. I believe he subdivided it into quite a few lots, and he's looking to remove 5 lots from chapter 61A protection at this time. The policy's been that Board of Selectmen have to vote whether or not to exercise their right of, their option of first right of refusal. And part of that process is they ask all the boards and commissions in town if they see any need for them to do so. So the request has been sent to us. You can see a couple of, I think Mr. Gunter included copies of their purchase and sales agreements. And he's also sent plans that identify which lots are being sold.
And we have no need for it.
At this time, I don't see a specific need for it, no.
Where are these lots? Are they up top of the hill or?
They're kind of scattered. If you look through the paperwork, you'll see lots 10 and 11 are down at the end of Boucher Road. There are a couple of nice lots. Could you try and drill a well and put a public water supply well in that area? Yes. So 10, 11, and 12 are being sold. They all abut each other. Lot 13 is a kind of a back parcel that has some wetlands. And lot 15 is kind of also another weird shaped parcel. If you keep going page to page, it shows that all the lots separately, more zoomed in.
Is that back parcel landlocked?
No, none of these parcels are landlocked. They all have frontage. They're all buildable lots.
Okay. Well, we can go on with our first scheduled appointment. Peter Newton. You finished what you were in the middle of?
I think you need to make a motion on whether or not you want to recommend the Board of Selectmen to exercise their option of first right of refusal. So if you just want to take a couple minutes and kind of look through it and see what your thoughts are.
I mean, this is the first time I think it's been in front of our face here, so we've gotta take a little time to look it over and make a decision.
Okay.
Do you wanna go on in the first place? Can this wait? I mean, for the decision, it may not be made tonight. I don't know.
The Board of Selectmen is meeting tomorrow, so
So we have to
unfortunately,
make it tonight then?
yes.
Okay. Just kind of, dead time for anybody at home while we're reading this, you know?
No, that's fine. I mean, I don't believe any, as far as water and sewer go, I don't think any of these lots would be conducive to do some type of satellite treatment plan or off-site sewer. I think, again, the only reason I think you'd wanna do anything up there would be to possibly site a deep well for a potential public water supply source. And then looking what's left for parcels, I mean, you could try and exercise your options for lots, say 10 and 11, and try and buy those two parcels and use them in the future, but I think there's other parcels at the beginning of Boucher Road that would be more conducive to doing something like that.
Are these considered to be buildable lots?
These are buildable lots, yes.
So then the price is fairly high.
I believe, yes, at least 90,000 for lots 10, 11, and 12 each.
Do you know about 14?
I don't believe 14 is under agreement at this time,
Okay.
so.
Has anybody made a quick enough decision to,
I believe right now
Say
it's,
something.
yeah, it's 10, 11, 12,
13,
13,
15. Okay. And 14 is, 14's a reduced frontage lot as well.
Just like 13, yes. It goes off and
It's a little
heads,
hard to read the,
it heads up towards 20.
and
So-
what do the selectmen wanna do? They wanna relinquish their right of first refusal?
So in order to remove it, yes, the Board of Selectmen has to vote whether or not to exercise their option of first right of refusal.
And have you got any feedback from the Board of Selectmen if the town, other people in the town have
I
interest
have
in this?
not, no. So I think the Board of Selectmen will be talking about tomorrow, and they'll review what they get for comments from the other boards and commissions.
From what I can see here, it doesn't seem like it'd be too beneficial for us to do anything, not to mention the cost and probably be prohibitive anyway, so it's not something that we can buy on speculation that's otherwise landlocked of no use. Russell, Jen, you ready to move on, or do you wanna take more time?
I'm good.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Oh, you wanna put it into a form of
Sure.
a motion, and
Make a motion to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that we do not have any input for the right of first refusal.
We don't have any use, we don't have a reason to exercise.
Second.
okay, we discussed it enough, or all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So, that we can move on, and Peter, you may come forward, please, and tell us how things are progressing down at Buffinville.
Good evening. So this site, as Peter is aware, is aggressively stubborn in giving up its secrets. So we spent the better part of 2 weeks, last week and the week before, with a drill rig up there. We got 8 borings done, 4 of which we completed as monitoring wells. And we do have a better sense on where material is. Now, I'll caution you that, the original drilling rig that we went out there was a big, powerful rig. And we could get 6-inch cores. This rig we had access to, because we could get out there, is maybe, well, a lot less expensive, and it was not quite as powerful, and we could get 1-inch cores. So one of the things that we saw in the first rig was that we had cut gravel, 2 to 3 inch diameter gravel in that zone at around 115 to 130 odd feet, 35 feet. The rig that we had wasn't gonna pull 3-inch gravel up. So we were at 2 of the locations where we had originally talked about drilling, so we had, and I did put together a map of the boring locations. This is based on a handheld GPS unit, so they're probably pretty close, but they might be 5 or 10 feet off, but they're pretty close. So BW2 on that figure is the original, the well we had installed last summer. 3 to the north, 4 to the south, BW3 to the north, BW4 to the south. Those are the 2 additional locations that we had talked about putting pumping wells in. Both of those wells, we encountered good material. We got to 133 feet on BW3, the one to the north. The one to the south, we hit refusal at 119 feet. But at refusal means the rig can't go any further. At that level, the last sample we got from 115 feet to 119 feet was very coarse sand, and it was brown and loose, very similar to what we got in that similar elevation at BW2, the one we installed last summer with the bigger rig. So in my opinion, refusal isn't bedrock, refusal is coarse gravel. That's my opinion. I can't, I think, you have to, that's, it's based on, a lot of years of doing this work, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong about stuff before. Not perfect, can't see into the ground. I can do the best I can. But those sites look promising, those 2 in BW3 and BW4. We went around, so on that figure, I drew in, I believe it's green where the borings are, and then brown to the south. That area of green, that's basically a rough approximation of the elevated, the high ground up there, and everything slopes off pretty dramatically on all sides from there, except, well, actually on all sides. So we followed around, we did 3 first, then 4, and then 5 and 6. We hit refusal very shallow, at 45 feet, 55 feet at those locations. 100% convinced that's a boulder, all right? It's the only thing that makes any sense. The material was exactly the same, drilling through, it was all fine to medium tan sand, very uniform stuff, and then we just bonked on a rock. And so we moved around to 7, and we got down to 100 feet. I have something else I'll bring to you, but yeah, we got down to about 115 feet at BW7. And similar characteristics, perhaps not as coarse, thick a coarse layer before we hit refusal at 7 as we did at 3 and 4. So 7 is to the east. All right, and then we went down, there's a little isthmus of thin area you can see on the green there, and it went to 8. And we got to 90 feet and hit refusal, and in this case, the materials up above were very similar, very consistent, fine sands, fine to medium sands, some silt. We got a little bit of coarse sands towards the bottom, and then at the very bottom, we got what looked like a brown mix of very fine sand, coarse sand, gravel bits, and probably some silt. It's a little unusual to see this color, but I believe that represents till, which is leftover, it's unsorted materials from when the glacier retreated. So we think on the other side of that isthmus, we start to get into some till deposits deep. And then at 9 and 10, which we go a little further to the east still, we hit refusal at around 65 feet.
Just refusal because your machine's not powerful?
So it's a totally fair question, and what we could do is look at what the bottom is in the bottom of that sampler and see is that similar to the stuff we found on the, in 2, 3, and 4, and 7. And it wasn't. It was the same color, but the mix of materials was different. When we get a mix, we get ranging from silts to gravels, all blended together. It doesn't produce water. It ends up packing so tight that water doesn't penetrate. This material was bone dry. which suggests that even any water above it isn't infiltrating into it. And, you know, so I don't think that we're likely to find that there's more better material beneath that. It's just very different than everything we saw on the western side of that little isthmus, for lack of a better term. But so we did not set wells well, we obviously didn't set them at 5 and 6 because we were still 20 feet above the water table. And at BW 9 and 10, we didn't set them there either, because we just didn't think there was any value. We're still too shallow probably for water. And the material just didn't look like it was gonna be suitable. So in other words, going to the east, the material gets thinner and less useful from a water supply standpoint.
You came back about a week ago looking for permission to dig another well. Is that 10, or have you not dug? that
No, these
one?
are the wells. These are the wells. This is that drilling program that I was here, it was probably
Nine.
3 weeks ago, right? 3 or 4 weeks ago?
I believe 9 and 10 were the additional well.
Yes,
That
yes,
we
yes,
were
yes, yes, that's
last
right. We did that or I did it via email. Yeah,
So so what happened was if you look at the shaded green area, is all of the area of land that's elevated high enough above the flood inundation zone where we could possibly site wells. And if you look at where BW 2, 3, 4, the first area, wells 2 through 7, there's probably at least between well 7 and well 8, that dip there is at least 65 to 70 feet in elevation.
yeah,
Where it drops back down and then comes back up very steeply, kind of both ways. So the thought was, if we could get the initial thought was to get 3 wells like we have here, BW 2, 3, and 4, all possibly off of the same confining layer of gravel that could produce 40 gallons of water per minute each. And then that would produce approximately 160,000 gallons per day or 170,000 gallons per day. And as we looked across the ravine to where this other higher elevation area was, that's when we started saying, well, let's see if we can do a couple more wells on the other side, see what's there for material, and see if we could add 2 or 3 more wells on the other side, then we could kind of double, almost, at least try and increase our water supply by increasing the number of wells that can get us that water. Unfortunately, the further east you go, it changes quite a bit
yeah.
as you drill. BW8, I think if we were to, I think the next steps, as Peter will tell you, if we can show that BW8 is somewhat connected to BW2 when it's pumped, then maybe there's a possibility of connecting it and doing some more research on that side. But if we can't, then all we have is pretty much the 3 wells or 4 wells, well 2, 3, 4, and 7 to possibly do on that other peninsula.
Right, right. So I spent a fair amount of time this afternoon trying to digest all the drilling logs and make sense and make it something that was kind of readable for you guys and turn it in, we look at, we like to take that data and turn it into a geologic cross-section. So we take these individual points and, then if we can find, do it in a linear, we can cut a cross-section through that and sort of lay out on paper what the materials are and extrapolate sort of and interpolate between the wells what's likely to be there. So, what I've done there is a fairly simple geologic cross-section. Elevation's kind of by eye, but everything's measured off. It's like 1 to 50 foot horizontal, 1 to 20 foot per inch. 1 inch is 50 foot on horizontal, 1 inch is 20 feet on the vertical. To try to get a sense for what the shape of this deposit, this gravel deposit, is likely to be. And, it's a work in progress, but I thought maybe that might be helpful in illustrating a little bit what I think that we're dealing with out there, in terms of the deposits, where the materials are. And, so I wanted to present that to you. And I think it's generally reasonably consistent with what we had talked about months ago, what the materials are there, what's there, and one of the things I noted there, it's a little easier to see on this, that there's a little pencil line with the triangle. That's the water elevation. That happens to be within inches of the elevation of the lake. So that is strongly indicative that somewhere in that lake is connected to these deposits, which is a good thing. It means that lake would serve as a source of recharge to the wells pumping. Far enough away,
Can I see that one?
Peter, that it's likely to place out of groundwater to the influence. But it's a potential source of recharge to the aquifer that the wells would be pumping from.
What is the shading in brown?
So the brown, between where the blue, that strip of blue is a creek.
Yep.
So that's a big cut through there, and I've actually never really seen anything this dramatic. On the north side of that creek there's the sands, that's 60, 70, 80 feet of fine sands through the borings. On the south side of that, it is a boulder field. I mean, it is very, very sudden.
Yeah, I think I actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
From walking that years ago.
So, I mean, that's clearly, a till deposit, a glacial contact deposit where the glacier stopped, it just dropped all its stuff there. It may be that the reason the stuff is here is that there was a lobe of ice that stopped and another lobe that either broke or melted, and all the water ran down along the side of that. And when the water runs, the higher velocity water carries the finer stuff away and leaves the heavier stuff behind, the thicker, bigger stuff behind. One of the things it's helpful is for me to develop a sort of a conceptual understanding of how these deposits got there, and it's a little easier for me to kind of figure out how useful they might be, how extensive they might be, where they might be connected to something that, a recharge, like the lake. The lake is probably part of it too. It's probably all part of that same glacial event. But I drew that because it is so sudden, the difference between the two halves on either side of that creek. It's really pretty dramatic.
Do you have an estimate of how many yards of sand there is there?
I could give you one. Thousands.
Thousands and thousands? Yeah.
Well, I'd have to cut it off at 529, right?
Yeah.
So 565 to 529.
Because across the lake, it was a similar situation.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. There's an awful lot of it, and it's Pete's seen it. It's really nice, fine beach sand. It's useless from a water supply standpoint. The sand is, but that's dry anyway. It's all above the water table.
And the sand's color is snow white?
It whitens up. It's tannish when it's wet, but when it dries out, it's pretty light. Yeah,
Good-
it's a pretty light tan.
Good concrete sand.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's good playground sand. It's good.
Yeah.
It's good sand. Good for beach replenishment somewhere. But so as I said, it's aggressively stubborn in giving up its secrets. But I think what Peter and I have talked about is we do still have the pump in well 2, BW2 there, and I think later in the week we're going to bring a generator out. We're going to run that pump, and we're going to monitor water level in the other 4 wells that are out there, the ones that we just installed, and see if we see any signals. If we see response to that similar to what we saw when we did the pump test last spring, fall, whenever that was September, October, whenever that was, that will that'll give us a little more information in terms of, is this material really transmissive? Does it really transmit water rapidly and quickly? If it doesn't, then we're gonna have a pretty, I think we'll have a reasonably clear answer. But if it does, then we're still in, okay, we're still looking at maybe 160 to 200 gallons a minute. Maybe, but we'll never know, and, we may not ever know.
So again, Peter was just out drilling last week. They finished up on Thursday. That's why there's not really a well-prepared report for you guys to review. I just wanted to get this information in front of you now to show what was done. I'm not gonna be at your next meeting to present anything else at that time, so we have one more meeting on May 4th before town meeting to really talk about this, so. I think over the next couple weeks, if Peter, we'll get out there this week, we'll do that pump test to see if those wells are actually somewhat connected, and if, like Peter said, if it transmits water that way, and then come up with I guess, a good recommendation for you to consider.
Okay.
So,
Okay?
You expecting to get there this week?
We are, yeah. Yeah, we had talked about going out today, but that site is, access to the site is tricky when it's dry. It's almost impossible when it's raining. There's that access through a very muddy area that
Yep.
I don't have a tractor available to pull me out of the mud this time.
So, as far as access goes, if we purchase both properties, we get a separate access point in.
Right,
which
we don't have to go
just
through that.
haven't- We haven't
Yeah.
spent any funds to do that at this time until we decide to move forward. And then as far as drilling on the second site that we're looking to purchase on Gill Road, we did walk up to that property, that 8 acres, that seems to be at the higher elevation, but that's a completely different piece of land with completely different materials on it. It's crazy to see what the difference is within, 400 yards of each
Right.
other.
Yeah, it's,
So unfortunately, yes, the elevation comes up, but I guess, the quality of the property is completely different. So,
right.
I have a sense that you're excited about this latest set of wells that have been put in.
I'm giving off that impression, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
I have to say, honestly, Rob, that I'm not as excited as I hope to be. And I explained to them when I first sat down that the original rig that we used was a big, powerful rig that could take 6-inch core barrels and 6-inch samples, and we could get a lot of material. And a lot of them, in the nice zone that we were pumping, we had 2 to 3 inch gravel, rounded, baseball-sized gravel. And the rig that we were using for this effort, because we wanted to get a lot of points in, we wanted to poke around as many as we can, and that other rig is just too expensive to do that. But it's, the trade-off is that it's not as powerful, and the core is 1-inch core instead of 6-inch core. So at the well BW4, which is the southern one, there's 3. There's the 2 that we installed last summer, BW2, and then 3 and 4, 3 being the north and 4 being the south. They hit materials, it was drilling through exactly the same material, or, identical materials to what we were drilling through with a big rig last summer. And then when we got to the zone, a couple of feet into the zone where the good gravel was, couldn't penetrate any further. Everything was the same, but the rig just isn't powerful enough to go through 3-inch gravel.
Because
So-
the gravel was so tight, and you need.
It was
you had a
hard, it's
smaller
hard.
machine.
It's hard gravel, it doesn't move, it doesn't break, and this rig just isn't, it's a small track mounted rig that's, a quarter or a third, quarter to less than the cost of that other rig, so we could use it, we could run it around and get to different sites a lot easier and a lot less expensively. But, so as I said to these guys, it's my opinion that the materials that it refused on are essentially the same type of materials that the other rig could get into. What I don't know is how thick that material is, because I can't get through it like I could get with the other one. But I know I'm confident that it's there. So, we set a well in it, and, Peter and I are gonna pump, and we're gonna see how it responds, and we're gonna, so, am I excited about it? I don't know. It'd be great if we could've gotten in, we could've gotten a great, nice well in, and everything was clear as day. Unfortunately, there's still a haze hanging over the site that I can't quite peer through reliably.
Good enough.
Great, thanks for
Okay,
coming up.
you're welcome. We'll be in touch.
And where will we go from here?
We'll just go on the agenda. Do you have any questions, Mrs. Moore?
No, I'm just here, my perennial, concern is just that the wells of the residents in the area not be impacted.
Okay.
Everybody kind of keep that
Yeah,
in mind.
yeah.
And I know we're at a stage now where we
Yeah.
don't even know if there's anything's gonna come out of this or not, so.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanna be a presence every once in a while to remind you of that.
Sure.
That's, and one of the things that is required, as part of any analysis, if this proves fruitful and the town decides to proceed, there's a number of levels of local and state permitting. And one of the big issues, the questions that has to be addressed is what are the effects on other local wells? You know, your wells, and in addition to stream flow and habitat that might be dependent on water that would
And I know
be-
that what you're looking at is you're looking at the gravel layer, which is considerably higher than the bedrock layer that every well I know of is at. Everybody's
Yes,
got a
there are almost,
50-foot well, you know?
yes,
But our aquifer water comes from somewhere.
yes, it does.
So some of it's trickling down from the aquifer you're tapping into, so that's my concern, is that you're talking about if this works, and I understand the town needs water, that's fine.
Yeah.
If this works, you're talking about a lot of water around the clock coming out of those wells, and I just am concerned that it's going to affect our lower aquifer.
Yep, it's something that we're gonna have to look into, if, you know, when the
When the time comes.
when the time comes,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
understand, yeah. I'm just here to be a little burr under your saddle.
Oh, that's good, that's good. It's good to have these questions up front, too. If you get a chance, can you either scan and send those, just the cross sections, the only things I want back, because they're all done by hand. I haven't even had a chance to scan them. So, I will send you scans tomorrow, so they can have them if you want.
Great.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Thank you. So we're on to water privilege fees?
Sure. So at your last meeting, you adopted the water privilege fee, you voted to implement it. So in order to do so, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, I thought it would be good to kind of draw up a water privilege fee policy that we can add to our policy handbook. And, that way there, it's spelled out exactly how it's done, there won't be any confusion. And we can use that to explain it to customers as well. So I put a draft copy of the policy in here for your review. And if you just wanna look at it and let me know what your thoughts are, be great.
Section 6, yeah.
You looking for a motion?
I would, yes, if everyone's comfortable with it, definitely a motion to approve it, and then we'll add it to your policy handbook.
Have you caught Alex and Jen up to speed? I think neither was here last week, and we talked about
Oh.
a privilege fee versus a connection fee.
Yep.
And it was decided to go with a privilege fee rather than a connection fee, and the vote was 2-1. I voted against it, I wanted a connection fee. And so that's where it stands and why it stands here. So I don't know if you're on board with that, okay with that, or whatever.
Tend to lean towards you, Paul.
Well, it's just a point of order here. We already had a vote,
Yes, we
and the
did.
vote stands.
Yes, we did.
Right. Okay.
All right.
While we attempting to revote?
Well, no, I
Okay,
didn't
just checking.
suggest that, but it
Yeah,
has
yeah.
been done in the past.
Yeah.
If there's strong objections, so.
Well-
Anyhow, let's move on to the fees you have. Should we be comparing the water privilege fee and the sewer privilege fee at the same time, or do you wanna do them separately?
No, I think we should do them separate. I just included the sewer one after because there's nothing in the office explaining how it was done. And now that we have that policy handbook started, I think it would be good to have it consistent and have it spelled out for both.
What you drafted here, Peter, as far as the water goes, is pretty much verbatim of what we discussed last week and what we voted on.
So I just asked, if everyone's okay with it, I'd ask for a motion to approve it, and then we can include it in our policy handbook.
Well, just as a point of clarification, this is what was previously voted on years ago by this commission and affirmed last week.
The amount was, how you're applying it was not.
Okay.
There was no reference in the motion, and in past discussions, Alex just talked about the FAR method that I tried to do some research on and look up under DOR's website, and as far as how to assess betterments based on the FAR method, and I didn't have any luck finding anything with that. So unfortunately, I was trying to come up with what they used for rhyme or reason, so what I did was, again, and that's why I wanted to get this policy adopted, so that, again, it's spelled out and that everyone is on the same page. It talks about the amount that you voted per EDU, and then you also discuss the fact, to be consistent, single-family home will be 1 EDU and 2 families will be 2. And then for commercial, you're gonna use Title V numbers at a factor of 60%. So this just spells all that out. I know the motion did state some of it, but it's different than the previous motion that was made in the fact of how it spelled out using the EDUs.
So the number of bedrooms is not,
For residential,
part
it
of
does
this,
not, no.
Just single family or
Yes.
multiple families?
Yes.
That's it, okay.
I make a motion that we accept the water privilege fee, policy, is that what you call it, as written.
Second.
Any other discussion on it? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Moving on, again, because in the office, there's really no policy on how the sewer privilege fees or betterments were assessed. I know there's past practice, which we can look back on and say this is how it was done. To be consistent with what you just adopted, I thought it would be good to just create this policy to put in our handbook, so again, everything is clear-cut and self-evident of how it's being done and why. So I believe we followed the same format as the water privilege fee. The only difference is the amount per EDU. For the residential sewer connections, I referenced what's known as phase 1 of sewer. They paid a different betterment, so in the past, you've charged them a lower privilege fee to be consistent with that. And then for sewer connections, for new sewer commercial sewer privilege fees, it's Title V numbers, but there's no 60% multiplier because that's not how it was done in the past. So other than that, it's consistent. I think it's nice and clear. It's easy for us to implement and enforce, and anybody looks to see how we do it, here it is. So,
Why'd you use 200?
because that's how they did it. They figured the average 3-bedroom home, the average home is 3 bedrooms, which is 330 gallons per day. They took out the safety factor for residential and used 60%, which came out to almost 200 gallons per day, which is what they figured for a single-family home for 1 EDU, based on what the engineers at the time were telling us when we were trying to implement betterments at that time.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I think that your last paragraph here for commercial should mirror the paragraph for water to make it equitable, because the way this is stated, that if you have a commercial use, that you're going to be paying more for your sewer betterment than what a single-family home would be paying. And I think the .6 should be added to this. In other words, almost make it identical to what was stated in the water charge. Then that way there is we're treating all uses equally, whether you're commercial, industrial, or residential, thus making it equitable. And I believe that's the key phrase, that betterment should be for everybody, is equitable. So I guess my suggestion would be is that we take that
My
section, for the commercial and add it in here to the sewer.
My only concern on that is, are you concerned about a challenge from any of the previous large privilege fees that you've assessed over the last couple of years?
Well, it'd be more
Where
than a
you
couple
didn't
of
do
years,
that?
it'd be a long time, but it's, I think what we're doing is we're identifying a shortfall and correcting it. And I don't think we have any obligation to go back and start handing out refunds. Could be mistaken, but,
Yeah,
I think it's more important to make sure that we don't continue the inequity that we're placing on, commercial and industrial users. Because we, you know, we certainly are aware of the oversight in the past.
I don't disagree, I just
Yep.
have that concern about what's been done in the past and if there's any avenue for them to challenge.
Was that a legal question? Worth asking?
There's no rush to approve this, so if you want me to ask that to council, I can.
And I think one, if I may, I think one of the avenues that you may want to, or at least one of the individuals you may want to check with is Mr. Abrams Senior. I recall at one time he was making that distinction between the two, years back.
As far as being equitable. Yeah, I understand, I'm more concerned about the legality of a challenge because
Boomerangs.
there's a few of them that were done not too long ago and some larger ones done not too long ago that could possibly, if anyone can challenge it, it would be them. And if they challenge it, it may open the door to some that were done previously. That, again, there's a few large ones there that 60% would make a big difference.
Yep.
Do you have a preference over which legal I reach out to, whether Mr. Cosgrove or whether I call Copman and Page?
Doesn't matter, but I think you should talk to Mr. Abrams as well.
No, I won't.
Yeah.
Let's start with Cosgrove.
Okay.
As long as he keeps it under $1,000.
Okay, so we'll hold the sewer privilege fee. And the next item is the water connection application. You've approved this in the past, but Sue's made some changes, so it's consistent with the privilege fee that you've approved, just so there's a line on it for that to be figured and included in the application, so the customer applicant will be aware of it from the beginning. So if you could review that, I think the only part that's really changed is the first page where it shows the application fee of $25 and then it shows the privilege fee next to it.
I make a motion to accept the new application.
Second.
Any more discussion on that? All hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Peter, can I ask why there's a USDA disclaimer on the bottom of this?
That's been on your letterhead template from before me. I didn't add it.
Steve may know why that's there.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll ask.
I'm not sure, but I think it came from Steve.
No, I didn't, that's just taking your letterhead template and working it, I didn't, I'm not sure why. Okay. So the next item is under, item 4 under old business would be the annual town meeting articles. As far as both budgets go, I've been trying to work with Donna and Robin to make some headway on indirect costs. Because of vacations or sicknesses, I haven't been able to really sit down with them too much. They haven't been in the office, so I'm gonna have to, it's gonna be some more time to continue to work with them on that and see if we can get those down a little bit. But other than that, I believe the indirect costs were the only concerns for the budgets, so I'll continue to work with them on that. And then as far as the other annual town meeting articles,
Excuse me, I see, are we complete on the water and sewer budget? Is that what you're saying?
other than indirect costs, yes.
Again, I still have the concern about our second administrator, as far as whether or not we should continue with that or not. It's my opinion, that's all,
Okay,
that's all.
so is there a motion for me to change anything, or?
Does anyone want to, because Mr. Boria provided us with information a few meetings back about the cost of the administrator that's there now and the cost of hiring outside people. And I believe the $80,000 that was spoken of, that when you include all the hours that is anticipated, that the number was pretty much the same. Am I correct in that description of?
To have an outside operator, I believe it was for 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
From either March through November, possibly.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was
And
a
that
wash.
was for water service, that was for water, somewhat water inspections only.
Okay, or the water inspection overview that's going on right now.
Yes.
And my concern is that with the bulk of the Casella project being completed, that what was left, that since there are already 2 consultants that are on the clock there, one is Ty and Bond, that's working for the engineering company, and the other one on an intermittent basis is the town of Southbridge's water department that checks on that. And that Ty and Bond stated that, actually it wasn't Ty and Bond, it was the Southbridge Water Department stated that they would be pleased to supply a weekly update and copies of their inspector to us. So, I guess the question that I have is, how many inspectors do we need to inspect? Yes, I know that infrastructure belongs to the town, but also the state is paying Ty and Bond to inspect that and also to give reports. I'm not sure if in fact we need to be spending those additional funds for that inspection. That's where I'm coming from, mostly on that. And then if we did need to have an inspector that was going to be inspecting water services, I just remind people of our annual report. I think we had a combination of water and sewer of 20 or less of installs. So there's not a high incidence of inspection that needs to take place. And usually those inspections, whether you're installing a water line or a sewer line, is a one-day item. So, again, with that cost of $80,000, I think we can buy a lot of inspections on a case-by-case situation.
But he does more than inspections, correct?
Yes.
Also fills in for vacations, does he not?
Yes.
Like I said, I believe that, again, there's a savings there for the department, and I don't think it should be overlooked. And that if in fact, Mr. Longley wanted to come back as a consultant, maybe that would be an opportunity on a consultant basis as a private contractor rather than a town employee.
What would it cost him for insurance to step foot on the site? No, nobody's gonna let him on the site without insurance.
No, again, he would, as an independent, he would get
Kind of
insurance.
cost prohibitive at that point.
And I don't know about that part.
Noted.
You said Mr. Warren does a lot of other things at the office, that, other than the inspections, that you would be
Right. Sure, he's
put
not-
to have someone else do them. I mean, you said you need him for these other things, and
Right, between the projects that are going on and the other stuff we have going around in the office, and yes, it's beneficial to have him there. It frees me up to do the other things that I'm doing, to be out on the field, in the field with Peter Newton, doing that type of stuff at Buffinville, to attend the DEP meetings, to participate in the other meetings to do with the construction projects. So for now, with with everything that's taken place, yes, I think it's easier to show that there's the need for that position.
We had 20 connections this year.
I don't know the number,
Roughly.
possibly, yes.
Next year, how many are we gonna have?
Berry Corner alone, you're gonna have 70.
Okay. And then
Then
Old Worcester Road.
School Loop, that will probably, if not next year, the year after, will be 150 to 200.
So
Looking almost
Potentially.
300, potentially 300 connections in the next few years.
Yes.
So potentially, we go from 20 to 100, 150 for the next 2 years, then we go back down.
Correct.
So potentially, maybe 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I'd be more inclined to agree with Rob. But
Not now.
next year, I don't know if I would be.
If I may, all of the new connections that are coming online for whether it be the school loop, which would be under the inspection of Kleinfeld, and the inspections for the Casella project would be under the inspection of both Ty and Bond and Southbridge. And also Southbridge will be reviewing the connections for the school loop as well. So, adding Mr. Wanlin, you're gonna have 3 inspectors there for each connection. And, you know, how many do you need? Because Kleinfelder certainly is gonna allow that to happen. And also is the, ExxonMobil's paying McClure Engineering, right, to do inspections. And I don't know how much inspections, or how far that covers, because I know we're obligated to have a P&E on site to answer questions for when they come up, because that was their point. We don't wanna be waiting around. We need someone on site who can answer a question when an issue comes up. And that's why they were paying them the money that they were paying. So, I just think there's a lot of redundancy out there. I think it's overkill. And maybe I would concede, or not concede, but I would say that once these 2 projects are over, then there is no need to have an additional administrator down there if in fact we stay the same way that we are right now, without becoming a consecutive water supply, because it's too much help there. So,
And I don't disagree, but I think with the projects that are taking place and everything that's going on at this time, I think it's a good redundancy to have in our office so that there's no gaps. While there may be some overlap, there's no gaps. And hopefully you've seen that because things have been getting done maybe a little bit differently than they were in the past. As far as billing, as far as correspondence, as far as how the office is running, as far as flow of information to you is going, so.
Sue is doing a great job.
Sue is, thank goodness.
right.
No, but I think the office is, no, I get it, and I don't disagree. I just think right now with what we have for personnel in that office, everything is working well together.
Right, and I think
So-
Sue's got some construction boots. She certainly can get trained on inspections.
Who's gonna answer the phone when you
Well,
call?
the thing, that's why you have to call forward
Call
and answer
forward.
on her cell phone.
Who's gonna give the permits when they
Yeah.
come in?
They don't come in that often, Peter.
So, either way, I think, again, things are going well right now.
Well, I'm just glad we had the discussion, okay?
Sure.
Just because I think it's important.
And I agree with you, Rob. It's very important to look at your cost and say, is there a lot of overlap in certain positions? And I would agree that there is, but it's also, in my estimation, necessary at this point in time. 2 years from now, I'd say I'm definitely gonna be more on your side of the equation. So,
Moving on.
So I'll continue to work on indirect costs with the town administrator and finance director. The next article you have, I'm not sure the exact number, will be if you decide to move forward with the property on Gale Road. It's the transfer of funds for purchase of, it says Phillips Realty, but it's for both parcels. And, we're putting both parcels together because one isn't really, I guess, good without the other. So if you're gonna purchase one, you're gonna purchase both for the access. So, I think as we get closer, we can fill in the final amount, and then we can also talk about the funding source of where you wanna take that money from.
And where do you propose the funding source to be?
I would propose we take it from the ExxonMobil settlement monies. I originally thought that we should use the 1.5 from our capital receipts for reserve for appropriation, but after seeing the I think it's down to 2.28 million that they have from the Exxon settlement monies in the general fund, I think we should ask them we should fund it from there to purchase, because these two parcels are more than just for us. It's water and sewer, it's water supply that'll benefit the entire town, not just this department. So, I would recommend that we ask to take it from there. I know that kind of leads into your next article that you requested, but. So again, as far as approval for this, I don't think we have to take a vote to approve or not until we have some final wording in there for you to truly consider. Is that right after the budgets?
oh, right after.
Yeah.
Ah, there it is. Thank you.
So the first one is for the transfer of funds. So initially, it says to take it from the receipts reserved for capital projects. Again, after looking at what's left from the ExxonMobil settlement monies, I think we should ask to take it from there, and we can just change that in the motion, I believe. So, I do know that on the warrant, they also have a funding article for the public safety complex building, and I believe they're gonna be looking to use the remainder of the ExxonMobil settlement money to offset that cost as well when they go to town meeting for approval. And I'm not sure sequentially if that comes before us, before this article, or after. I think it probably comes before. So, we'll have to kind of look at that some more.
So they're asking to take funds that were, I don't want to say given to the town, but that was negotiated to come to the town for mitigation of the spill. And we're gonna build police and fire department with it.
I believe I believe, I haven't seen the exact
No,
language.
no, I agree with you. I think that's the intent. Okay, and that's why I know when you and I were at the finance committee meeting, is that I took the position is that, first of all, this money, as originally stated, the balance was to go to water and sewer. And that, obviously, with the only way it can be spent, it has to be spent through town meeting approval. And I still firmly believe that's where these funds belong, to go and to be set aside, so that when issues come up, problems come up, that there are funds there to take care of them. And it definitely was not the intent, or I don't think it was the intent of ExxonMobil for us to build police and fire department structures with it. But again, that's just my opinion.
So, as far as how it's gonna go is, I believe their article will be first. Town meeting will decide whether or not they agree with you or not. if they approve it. If they approve it as requested by the Board of Selectmen and FinCom, then that money will be gone.
Well, you say it'll be gone, but first of all, is the, are they going for the approval to build the structure at 27.5 million or whatever it is? Is that what they're going for?
It's a two-step process for a debt exclusion, right?
Yeah,
It's-
exactly.
So they're gonna start, step one will be this. Step one will be town meeting approval.
Right,
And they don't have, it's not one before the other, it's just a two-part process.
right,
And
subject to an override vote,
a debt exclusion
a debt
ballot
exclusion
vote,
vote, ballot
yes,
vote. So
So-
even if it does pass on town floor,
yes.
then if it,
It's gotta
if
pass
it has to
a
pass
special.
a special election,
No,
a
Or-
ballot.
has to pass a ballot.
Has to pass.
Whenever they
Yeah.
decide to do it, they could
Well,
do it as an annual, they could do it as part of a state primary.
Yeah,
So it doesn't have to be a special, I guess.
okay,
It could be,
okay.
but it
Right.
doesn't have to be.
right.
It just has to be a ballot question at a town election.
So it would be one of the three. It would be
Mhm.
state election, fall town meeting, or the annual.
It's a fall town meeting, no, because there's no ballot, it's a ballot vote, so it has to be an election.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah,
yep,
It could be a state primary in the fall,
yep.
but not. And again, they haven't really talked much about what their intent is there, so.
And we can't push ours before.
No, they set the order. You can amend it they can make their motion, you can amend it to either
Right.
take the entire 2.3 million off, or to take whatever the amount the properties are that we're gonna spend off, and save it for our article after.
exactly,
And just go that way.
yeah.
But as far as changing the order of the articles, no,
Darn.
no.
No, that's already been,
I
that's
think
already
that's
been,
pretty much in
I
there.
either, is it crafted, manipulated, or at least, I don't know if they pick them out of a bag, all right? But,
So, and then the last
One Rob
article,
works the magic.
work the magic, really work the magic. The thing is, that's the great part of town meeting is, anybody can stand up and make a motion, and if the people believe in it, then fine, that's what goes. So,
then the last article you requested was the transfer of ExxonMobil settlement monies. I do believe that's gonna be the last article before the petitions, so. Depending what happens with the previous two articles, will determine how much if any money is left there, and if there will be anything to transfer at that time.
and just to be clear, is, when we're asking for this, we're asking for those monies to be either earmarked for water and sewer, all subject to town meeting approval. So it's not as if it's coming into our budget, and we get to spend that money. No, it's just, we need it, so it's been dedicated to a certain account for water and sewer needs, subject to town meeting approval. Okay? Sometimes people just think, all right, now if they, water and sewer has it, they're gonna go and spend it wherever they wanna spend it.
Right.
No, it doesn't work that way.
No, not without town meeting approval.
Right.
So those are your four articles that will be on the annual town meeting. Hopefully have finalized copies of those for you at our meeting on May 4th. Your second meeting in May is on May 20th, which is the night of town meeting. I don't know if you wanna just skip that meeting and meet. I mean, the only really important thing you'll have that, as long as our budget and everything else is squared away, the only important thing on your May 20th meeting will be Veolia there for their MOR. We can just ask them to come in the first meeting in June to give you the MOR for April. And I don't think you'll fall too far behind by skipping that meeting. Unless there's some decisions that need to be made before we go to town meeting, then we can make that decision as we get closer, if that's okay. Alright. So, moving on, are there any questions on town meeting? Okay. Water line construction update. Berry Corner Road construction. Ludlow Construction began installing the service laterals and cutting trees on H-Foot Road last week. They also installed a PRV vault at the base of Berry Corner Road down near Route 169. They're gonna continue to install service laterals on H-Foot Road. They should be done by the end of this week. with those service laterals. And they're still starting to cut trees on Berry Corner Road to kind of make room for where the service connections will actually go onto private property. We have a meeting tomorrow morning, just an update meeting, and we'll find out when they're gonna start pressure testing the main and start doing some of that stuff as well.
Peter, if I may, who's gonna be, or who's expected to be in attendance at that meeting?
Tomorrow,
Yeah, yeah,
Ty and Bond with their
Yeah.
engineers.
yeah, Southbridge.
Their new RE they have on site. There'll be probably just one representative from Ludlow.
Okay.
Southbridge will be Heather, Steve Gregoire,
Right,
Steve
okay,
Blanchard,
Yeah,
myself, Steve Wanlin, Jim Philbrooks attends, Jerry Fosca will probably
will
attend.
Maura Johnson be there?
This is no,
Okay.
this is Berry Corner
Barry
Road.
Con, okay, gotcha.
No, she won't be there. So,
She'll be working on the other side of town.
Maura, yeah, she's not there every day, but Maura doesn't attend their bi-weekly meetings every week either.
Yeah,
If she's in the area, she stops in, maybe every third meeting, she might be there,
yeah.
but she's
okay.
not there every meeting.
Good enough.
Yeah, so the Berry Corner Road is getting going. There's been a little bit of a tough start there with the elementary school bus because it comes through, for H Foot Road at like 8:10. They've already got a couple of service lateral trenches opened up, so they have to stop work, get the trucks out of the way, plate the trench for the bus to get over, and the driver doesn't feel comfortable really driving over the plate, so.
But they know they're coming and they know what time it is.
They know they're coming. There's been a little bit of discussion over, depends who you talk to, about how fast they get the road passable for the bus, so. In talking to Ty and Bond today, and again, we're gonna talk about this more tomorrow, but they're planning on having all of those service laterals done by the end of this week, so. I talked to Nancy from First Student, and she's trying to work with the residents up there to make it easier for the bus drivers to just have them be able to pick up the students at the end of the road for, at least until the service laterals are done.
That'd be a good project for Mr. Wanlon to make sure that he watches his clock so that he instructs the construction people that they've gotta stop doing what they're doing and prepare for the buses so they can
Well,
get in and out.
The morning buses are doing okay, those
Okay.
other buses. And again, it's a short window of time for these laterals, unfortunately, they should be, so if it was a 3-week process to get these laterals in, it was gonna continue to happen, then yes, I think we'd approach it a little bit differently. But because it's only 2 or 3 more days and it's gonna be done, we'll see what we come up with tomorrow morning.
If I may, are any of the laterals being put in with the, the pressure, driving of the pipes? Like what they did up here at the school loop? That construction company didn't dig trenches, what they did was they
The
had.
mole probably is rocky as it was up there, mole's not gonna work, right?
Oh,
Or the
okay.
ledge they hit,
I
just
don't
gonna hit,
know.
just gonna hit a piece of rock and the mole's gonna go off in
Okay.
another direction.
Okay, so maybe the,
It's
so
not
you're
gonna
saying
work.
the soil isn't, doesn't have that consistency to use that?
They're using a hammer for the service laterals.
Oh,
So-
okay, never mind.
No, they're not, there's no
Okay.
directional drilling, there's no,
Okay,
they're, the trench is open.
right, right.
So, yep. So the school loop, Albanese Brothers has begun installing a water main on L. Stevens Road and Old Worcester Road. They're starting to have excess material and would like to start to truck it to the highway garage on Flint Road. And a couple of past meetings with the highway superintendent, they talked with Jerry about excess material, and Jerry said he has plenty of room for it down there for them to dump. So I know at this town, the board said before that they have access, I don't know what to call it, first right to it, but,
Well, actually, I believe what the language was, we could, A, we have the right to it, B, we could actually direct them where to, in town, where to dump it. So if there was a specific need at a specific location, we could say, fine, bring it to location A, and they'd be required to do that. And this is Albanese, or is this
yep, this is Albanese.
Albanese? Okay, and so what they're talking about is their large tailings, is that what they wanna get rid of right now?
Or whatever they get out of, they're also hammer and ledge, so probably whatever they're getting out of that ledge portion of it, that instead of trying to process it, they're probably just gonna dump it right down at the highway garage.
I did notice, they do have a crusher.
They
over
are
where
processing, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
They don't wanna give us
They have
any of the processed stuff?
I don't think so,
No?
Yeah.
That'd be nice road beds.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
so.
Are they sampling the soil before they move it?
As far as, Kleinfelder has their engineers on there, I'm not I don't think they're sampling, I'm not sure what they're using for protocol to sample. I know they've talked about sampling
Strongly suggest that they sample it before they move it elsewhere.
before they drop it there.
And Alex, when you're talking about sampling for contaminants, is that what you're saying?
VOCs,
Okay,
contaminants,
Yeah, okay.
myriad of things.
So if there's no objection, they're gonna start bringing material there. Albany's plans on pressure testing Masonic Home Road water main that was installed last fall, soon. And they're gonna bring on a third crew to start, installing service laterals on Masonic Home Road, and then move over to Old Worcester Road and start following the main crew down Old Worcester Road while the road's closed. So,
And what about the construction work from the pump house on the property of Masonic Home up to the,
I was getting to that.
oh, sorry,
That's okay.
I didn't read it.
Alright.
Yeah.
So as far as the school loop, they'll probably have 3 crews going there. They'll have the two main crews, and then one service crew kind of following or bouncing around where they can get some work going. If you wanna jump down to the Bay Path and Overlook pump stations, Albanese Brothers has, they've ordered the pump stations and they anticipate delivery approximately September or October. They're gonna have an additional crew beginning in about 2 months to start the site work required for both of those sites, so that those sites will be prepped and ready to receive those pump stations when they're delivered in the fall. So in all, they plan on having anywhere from 4 to 5 crews working throughout the town this summer.
4 months out, it's a long time, and those are
Yep.
baby pump stations.
They're ordered and hopefully they're up and in and installed and everything's going by the winter. The Route 169 pump station, the pump skid has arrived in Connecticut and is being installed in the building. They plan on delivery of both to us approximately April 18th. Once the pump station's delivered and put in place, they're saying it'll take 4 to 5 weeks to finalize installation from then. So, that should be coming to completion fairly soon. And attached, you'll see a map that we received from Kleinfelder, I think it was today, that just gives you an update of where they anticipate working for this week and next week, I believe. So we forwarded this to Lisa Westwell, so that she could put it up on the website to share that information with the residents. And I believe Exxon has this on their webpage, their website that people can access through the town's main page.
Peter, I know this question has come up, or this discussion has taken place in the past, but June to August, as far as the Heritage Charlton Middle School location is, you know, we're gonna have dead water there, because it's not looped.
You're probably gonna have empty water line. You have
No,
Ju-
no,
June?
once it's on and up and running,
Once it's on, up and running.
next year, okay?
I believe it is looped.
It's looped within the school.
It's looped within the school, comes back out and then heads up to, it's directionally flowed. It's valved to flow through the school and then out to Overlook.
Well, I would agree with you if in fact if in fact the middle school was connected to the Heritage School and then out that way.
The small, so if you look at the main driveway, how it loops,
Yep,
that is gonna be one direction flow with
Right.
offshoots. So the only line that's gonna be dead is that short little line to Charlton Middle School.
exactly.
There's really not much we can do about that.
Well, you, from the, from the middle, is it from the middle school, or? Right where the bottom left, if they went through the woods, they could get to Heritage and then go up from there, go out to, Oxford Road. Take a look at that, discuss that with Heather tomorrow. We had that discussion 3 years ago, about the directional flow and making it going from one
So
school.
you're just worried about that short little leg that goes out to the
Yeah,
middle
it's, well,
school?
I think it's an 8-inch line. Yeah, I know it's not the end of the world, they certainly can
Okay.
blow some of it off, but it would alleviate any blow-offs and any extra testing. Because the water would come down, go through both schools, back out to Oxford Road, then up to Mugget Hill.
Okay. We'll bring it up tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
And don't forget, where was, if I may, I mean, kind of conversation here, but child is responsible for any blow-offs. We have to pay for them. We pay for the cost. So that's why, I'm just being a little picky here as far as, trying to make that so that there is no need for a blow-off there, because all of the water that's gonna go to Masonic Home is gonna go down through that loop into Masonic Home, and it's gonna be a 2-day turnover at the most down there.
Boy Scouts could have a car wash down there.
They can.
Every day.
And plus, I mean, the water quality with these mixes is gonna improve big time. Big enough to maybe we could go to the Far East section of town.
Just a reminder, I'm not gonna be here next meeting. Steve will be here.
Yep.
We'll put the agenda together, everything should be,
Is that another vacation, Mr. Boyer?
it is. Another, thank you.
We all in for tonight. How about a motion?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
I